Welcome to Clear Voice, where timeless wisdom meets modern life. Today, we dive into Dale Carnegie's classic, How to Win Friends and Influence People, a book that has transformed millions of lives with simple, powerful principles of communication, influence, and human connection. Whether you want to strengthen relationships, succeed in business, or simply become a better version of yourself, this audiobook will guide you step by step. So sit back, relax, and let's begin this journey into one of the greatest self-development books ever written. Introduction. This timeless classic, first published in 1936, has transformed millions of lives by teaching the simple yet powerful art of human connection. Inside these chapters, you'll discover proven techniques to handle people gracefully, win lasting friendships, and influence others without creating resistance. Carnegie's principles are not tricks or manipulation. They are timeless truths about human nature, communication, and leadership. Whether in business, relationships, or everyday life, these lessons will help you build trust, inspire cooperation, and leave a lasting impression. Let's begin this journey into the principles that have stood the test of time, principles that can help you shape your personal and professional success. Part 1: Fundamental Techniques in Handling People. Chapter 1: If you want to gather honey, don't kick over the beehive. When it comes to dealing with people, there's one principle that lies at the heart of it all: criticism is useless. Criticizing others doesn't make them change, it makes them defensive. It wounds their pride, stirs resentment, and often drives them further away from improvement. Dale Carnegie begins by showing us a simple truth: when you condemn someone, you're telling them they are wrong. But every human being believes they are right in their own mind. So instead of inspiring change, criticism pushes people to justify themselves, to resist, and to resent you. Think about it. When was the last time criticism made you eager to improve? More often, it makes us feel attacked, embarrassed, or bitter. That's why great leaders, wise teachers, and inspiring friends use a different approach. They look for understanding, not blame. Carnegie tells the story of Al Capone, one of America's most notorious gangsters. Despite being hunted by law enforcement and despised by the public, Capone didn't see himself as a villain. In his own mind, he was a misunderstood benefactor, someone who gave people what they wanted. Even criminals, even the most ruthless men, justify their actions. And if such people don't see themselves as wrong, how can ordinary criticism ever change them? The lesson is clear: instead of condemning, try to understand. Put yourself in the other person's shoes. Ask why they do what they do. Show empathy instead of anger. This doesn't mean you accept harmful behavior, it means you choose a smarter way to influence. So, if you want cooperation instead of conflict, if you want to gather honey in your relationships and not poison them, don't kick over the beehive. Don't criticize, condemn, or complain. Instead, seek to understand. This is the first fundamental technique in handling people, a principle that transforms enemies into friends, and friends into lifelong allies. Chapter 2: The Big Secret of Dealing with People. Every person you meet, no matter who they are, carries one deep desire: the need to feel important. This is the big secret of dealing with people. More than wealth, more than pleasure, more even than safety, human beings crave recognition, appreciation, and a sense that their lives matter. Dale Carnegie explains that in our daily interactions, most of us are quick to notice faults but slow to recognize value. We take people for granted, forgetting that a simple, sincere compliment can change the entire course of a relationship. Genuine appreciation, expressed openly, has the power to win hearts where criticism never could. The important word here is genuine. Flattery is empty, it is shallow praise without sincerity, and people can sense it. But appreciation is real. It looks for the good in others and acknowledges it. It costs nothing, but it can mean everything to the person receiving it. Carnegie shares examples of leaders, businesspeople, and everyday individuals who transformed relationships simply by recognizing others' efforts. Think of the last time someone truly appreciated you, not for what you gave them, but for who you are and what you contributed. That feeling stays with you, doesn't it? It inspires loyalty, warmth, and a willingness to give even more. The lesson here is timeless. If you want people to respond positively, give them what they crave most: sincere appreciation. Recognize their efforts, honor their achievements, and let them know they matter. So the big secret of dealing with people is not force, not authority, not manipulation. It is simply this: a warm, genuine appreciation for who they are. When you give it freely, you open the door to friendship, cooperation, and trust. Chapter 3: He who can do this has the whole world with him. He who cannot walks a lonely way. There is one skill, one quality, that determines whether you draw people toward you, or push them away. That quality is the ability to see things from the other person's point of view. To understand their desires, their needs, their perspective. Dale Carnegie tells us plainly, the world is full of people thinking only of themselves. They ask, what do I want? What do I need? How can I get ahead? But the person who pauses, who shifts focus outward, who asks instead, what does this person want? What does this person need? That person holds the key to influence. Think of a simple example. When you want to persuade someone, do you talk endlessly about what benefits you? Or do you frame it in terms of what matters to them? A child who doesn't want to eat vegetables will not be convinced by, it's good for you. But if you say, eat your carrots and you'll grow strong enough to run faster than your friends, suddenly the child sees a reason that speaks to their desire. This principle applies everywhere, in business, in leadership, in love, in friendship. When you appeal to what the other person wants, cooperation flows naturally. When you ignore it, resistance hardens like stone. Carnegie stresses that the person who masters this art, the person who learns to speak in the language of others' desires, has the whole world with him. For people naturally gravitate toward those who make them feel understood. But the one who cannot, who insists on focusing only on their own needs, walks a lonely way. The lesson is simple, but it changes everything. Stop talking only about yourself. Start thinking in terms of the other person's wants. Ask yourself, how can I give them what they desire? When you do, you'll find doors opening, friendship strengthening, and influence growing, quietly, naturally, and powerfully. Part 2: 6 Ways to Make People Like You. Chapter 1: Do this and you'll be welcome anywhere. There is one simple action that can melt barriers, win trust, and make you instantly more likable. It doesn't require wealth, charm, or genius. It's something every one of us can give freely. That secret is, be genuinely interested in other people. Most people spend their days thinking about themselves, what they want, what they fear, what they hope for. But when you show a real interest in another person, when you ask about their life, their work, their family, you step out of that ordinary pattern. You make them feel valued. And in return, they feel drawn to you. Dale Carnegie tells us that dogs have mastered this principle. Think about it, why are dogs so loved? Because the moment you walk into a room, they rush to greet you, tails wagging, eyes shining. They don't care about themselves. They're focused entirely on you. And that, in its purest form, is why dogs win our affection so easily. Human beings are no different. We are drawn to those who notice us, who ask questions with real curiosity, who listen without impatience. This doesn't mean pretending to care, it means actually caring. It means setting aside your own ego long enough to step into someone else's world. Carnegie reminds us that showing genuine interest will take you farther than trying to impress others. People don't remember how dazzling your achievements are. They remember how you made them feel. And when you make them feel important, respected, and seen, they welcome you anywhere. So if you want to build friendships, if you want to leave a lasting impression, start with this one habit: be genuinely interested in others. Ask, listen, and care. Because the quickest way to be welcome everywhere, is to make others feel welcome in your presence. Chapter 2: A Simple Way to Make a Good First Impression. First impressions matter. In just a few seconds, people form an opinion of you, an opinion that often lasts long after that first meeting. The question is, how can you make that impression a good one? Dale Carnegie gives us an answer so simple, yet so powerful: smile. A smile speaks a universal language. It tells people you're approachable, that you're happy to see them, that you bring warmth rather than coldness. No words are needed, just the curve of your lips and the light in your eyes. Carnegie reminds us that actions speak louder than words. You can say, "I'm glad to meet you," but if your face is blank or stern, the message doesn't land. A genuine smile, on the other hand, makes people believe it. It creates trust, eases tension, and opens the door to friendship. Think of the people you enjoy being around. Chances are, they're the ones who smile often. Their presence feels uplifting. And the same is true for you. When you smile, you're not only making others feel good, you're also shaping how they see you: kind, likable, confident, and positive. Of course, the key word is genuine. A forced or mechanical smile doesn't fool anyone. But when your smile reflects real warmth, it radiates authenticity, and people can feel it instantly. So the simple way to make a good first impression is not with fancy clothes, or clever words, or rehearsed gestures. It's with something you already carry with you everywhere: your smile. Use it sincerely, and you'll be remembered long after the first hello. Chapter 3: If you don't do this, you are headed for trouble. There is one habit that, if neglected, can quietly destroy relationships and close doors all around you. A habit so basic, yet so often forgotten. And it is this: remembering and using a person's name. Dale Carnegie reminds us that to each of us, our own name is the sweetest sound in any language. It represents our identity, our uniqueness, our place in the world. When someone remembers your name, you feel seen. You feel valued. But when they forget, or worse, when they get it wrong, you feel like just another face in the crowd. Think about it. A business owner who remembers the names of customers keeps their loyalty. A leader who remembers the names of employees wins their respect. Even in casual conversation, calling someone by name makes the interaction personal, warm, and human. It tells the other person, "You matter enough for me to remember you." Carnegie tells stories of famous figures who made this a practice: presidents, leaders, and businesspeople who seemed to know hundreds of names with ease. Their secret wasn't a perfect memory, it was effort. They made remembering names a priority, because they knew the power it held. On the other hand, ignoring this principle can lead to trouble. People may not say it aloud, but they notice when you don't care enough to remember. It creates distance, a subtle barrier between you and them. The lesson is simple but vital: make it a habit to remember names, and to use them often. Repeat a name when you're introduced. Write it down. Connect it to an image in your mind if you need to. Do whatever it takes, because a person's name is more than just a word, it is the doorway to their goodwill and trust. So, if you don't do this, you're headed for trouble. But if you do, you'll find that people open up to you, welcome you, and remember you, because you remembered them. Chapter 4: An easy way to become a good conversationalist. Most people believe that to be a good conversationalist, you need wit, clever stories, or a gift for words. But Dale Carnegie shows us something surprising: the best conversationalists are not the best talkers. They are the best listeners. Think about it. When you meet someone who listens with genuine interest, who encourages you to share your thoughts, your experiences, your feelings, you walk away thinking, "What a wonderful person." And yet, that person may have said very little. Their gift was giving you space to speak, and making you feel heard. Carnegie reminds us that people love to talk about themselves. It's their favorite subject, because it connects to their identity, their struggles, and their achievements. If you let them talk, if you encourage them with questions, and if you listen attentively, you will win their affection without trying to impress them. This doesn't mean staying silent like a statue. It means showing active interest, nodding, asking follow-up questions, repeating a key point to show you understand. When someone says, "I had a hard day at work," don't just say, "Oh." Ask, "What made it difficult?" That simple curiosity opens the door to deeper connection. Great leaders, salespeople, and friends all share this skill, the ability to listen. It makes people feel valued. It transforms conversations into meaningful exchanges. And it requires no special talent, just patience, humility, and genuine curiosity. So if you want to become a great conversationalist, remember this: be a great listener. Encourage others to talk about themselves. When you do, you won't need to charm people with stories, they will walk away feeling that time with you was a gift. And that feeling is what builds true connection. Chapter 5: How to Interest People. If you want people to find you interesting, the secret isn't to talk endlessly about yourself. The real secret is this: talk in terms of the other person's interests. Dale Carnegie reminds us that everyone carries around an invisible sign that reads, "I am interested in myself." And if you want to capture their attention, you must connect to what matters most to them. Think about it. A child who loves baseball will light up the moment you mention their favorite team. A businessperson will lean in if you talk about the challenges they face in their work. Even in casual conversation, if you find the subject the other person cares deeply about, whether it's travel, family, hobbies, or dreams, you unlock their energy and enthusiasm. Carnegie tells stories of leaders who mastered this art. One example is Theodore Roosevelt. Before meeting someone, Roosevelt often stayed up late the night before, reading about a subject that person cared about, whether it was ranching, politics, or literature. By doing so, he could speak in their language and instantly connect. People walked away feeling seen, respected, and valued. The truth is simple: when you speak about what interests others, you capture their attention. When you ignore their interests and focus only on yourself, you risk losing them. So the key to interesting people is not showing off your own knowledge, but tuning into theirs. Discover what excites them, and talk about it. When you do, conversations flow naturally, bonds are created, and people remember you, not because you impressed them, but because you cared about what mattered to them. Chapter 6: How to Make People Like You Instantly. There is a way to win someone's liking almost immediately. It doesn't require long conversations, clever words, or even much time. The secret is this: make the other person feel important, and do it sincerely. Dale Carnegie reminds us that the deepest craving of human nature is the desire to feel valued. We all want to believe we matter, that our lives have meaning, that others notice us. And when someone gives us that feeling, even in a small way, we can't help but be drawn to them. The key, however, is sincerity. Empty flattery, shallow compliments, or false praise will only backfire. People sense when words are hollow. But when you genuinely recognize something in another person, their effort, their kindness, their ideas, or their qualities, you light a spark inside them. Imagine a colleague whose hard work often goes unnoticed. A simple, honest acknowledgement like, "I admire the way you handled that challenge," can change not only how they feel about their work, but also how they feel about you. Or think of a friend, a spouse, a family member. Just a sincere word of recognition can strengthen the bond between you in an instant. This principle works everywhere. Leaders win loyalty by making their people feel valued. Businesses thrive when customers feel important. Even in casual encounters, when you show someone they matter, you create a lasting impression. So if you want to make people like you instantly, remember this: make them feel important, and mean it. When your words and actions come from sincerity, people respond with warmth, trust, and friendship. With this principle, Carnegie closes the 6 timeless ways to make people like you, guidelines that transform ordinary encounters into lasting connections. Part 3: How to Win People to Your Way of Thinking. Chapter 1: You Can't Win an Argument. We've all been there, locked in an argument, certain that if we just prove our point strongly enough, the other person will see the light and admit we're right. But Dale Carnegie delivers a hard truth: you can't truly win an argument. Here's why. Even if you win by overwhelming the other person with logic, facts, or clever words, what have you really gained? You've made them feel inferior, embarrassed, or resentful. They may not say it aloud, but inside, they are more determined than ever to cling to their opinion. You've bruised their pride, and pride is rarely surrendered in an argument. Carnegie reminds us that a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. Arguments rarely change hearts, they only harden them. So what should we do instead? Avoid arguments altogether. If a disagreement arises, resist the urge to fight back. Instead, show respect for the other person's opinions. Listen first. Seek common ground. Guide the conversation gently toward understanding, rather than battling for victory. Think of it this way, in an argument, there are two losers. You may win on paper, but you lose goodwill, harmony, and trust. The smarter path is not to conquer someone, but to lead them, patiently, respectfully, toward seeing your side without feeling attacked. The lesson is simple, the only way to get the best of an argument is to avoid it. Let go of the need to be right. Focus instead on keeping the relationship strong. In the long run, influence is not won through force, it's won through understanding. Chapter 2, A Sure Way of Making Enemies, and How to Avoid It. There is one habit that almost guarantees conflict. One reflex that can turn potential friends into quiet enemies. And it is this, telling someone they are wrong. Dale Carnegie explains that nothing wounds a person's pride faster than blunt contradiction. The moment you say, "You're wrong," you've challenged their intelligence, their judgment, even their dignity. And in most cases, instead of reconsidering, they will dig in deeper. The human mind resists correction when it feels attacked. Think about it. When someone flatly tells you, "That's not true," how do you feel? Likely defensive, even if part of you wonders if they might be right. Pride rises up, and your first instinct is to fight back. Carnegie shares that wise communicators avoid direct contradiction. Instead, they approach disagreements gently. They say things like, "I may be mistaken. Let's examine the facts together." Or, "That's an interesting point. Here's another way to look at it." This approach softens resistance. It leaves the door open for the other person to save face, while still considering your perspective. Benjamin Franklin once said that he avoided words like "certainly" or "undoubtedly" when stating his opinions. Instead, he used phrases such as, "I think," or "it appears to me." Why? Because Franklin knew that forcing his certainty on others only invited opposition. But expressing himself with humility encouraged people to listen. The lesson is powerful: if you want to influence others, don't begin by declaring them wrong. Approach disagreements with respect and tact. Let people hold on to their dignity, even while you guide them toward a new way of thinking. So, the sure way to make enemies is to attack another's pride by telling them they're wrong. And the sure way to avoid it is with humility, patience, and respect. In doing so, you keep doors open, doors that arguments would slam shut. Chapter 3, If You're Wrong, Admit It. Most of us find it hard to say these three simple words: "I was wrong." Pride resists. Ego resists. We fear losing face, losing respect, or appearing weak. But Dale Carnegie shows us a surprising truth: admitting when you're wrong is not weakness, it is strength. When you admit your mistakes openly and quickly, you disarm the other person. You take away their reason to criticize you. Instead of bracing for an argument, they feel respect for your honesty. Instead of fighting you, they join you. Think about the difference. Imagine being caught in a mistake. If you deny it, argue about it, or make excuses, the other person feels justified in pressing harder. But if you say right away, "You're absolutely right. I made a mistake, and I regret it," the tension dissolves. In fact, more often than not, people respond with generosity, sometimes even softening their own stance to make you feel better. Carnegie shares that even in heated situations, admitting fault instantly turns hostility into goodwill. It shows humility, maturity, and courage. It tells others you value truth more than ego. This principle works in small matters as well as great ones. In personal relationships, in business, in daily life, the sooner you admit you're wrong, the sooner trust and respect grow. It may sting in the moment, but it pays off in stronger bonds and greater influence. So if you're wrong, don't argue. Don't delay. Don't hide behind excuses. Admit it quickly, admit it sincerely, and move forward. By doing so, you turn potential enemies into allies, and conflicts into cooperation. Chapter 4, A Drop of Honey. Anger is easy. Harsh words come quickly. But Dale Carnegie reminds us that when it comes to influencing people, a gentle approach works better than force. He calls this principle a drop of honey. Why? Because just as honey attracts more flies than vinegar, kindness and friendliness win more people to your side than hostility ever will. When we start a conversation with aggression, when our tone is sharp, our words defensive, we trigger resistance. The other person feels attacked, and their natural response is to fight back. But when we begin with warmth, respect, and a calm spirit, we invite cooperation. Instead of a wall, we build a bridge. Carnegie tells stories of how even in legal disputes and heated negotiations, those who began with kindness found doors opening. Opponents softened. Hostility gave way to discussion. The same is true in everyday life. A disagreement with a coworker, a conflict at home, a misunderstanding with a friend, all of these situations improve when we replace harshness with gentleness. This doesn't mean you avoid standing your ground. It means you deliver your message with patience, empathy, and respect. You approach others as human beings, not enemies. And in doing so, you increase the chance they'll actually listen. So remember, a drop of honey attracts more than a gallon of gall. If you want to influence people, don't begin with anger. Begin with friendliness. Approach others with a smile, a calm tone, and a willingness to understand. That single drop of honey may be all it takes to turn opposition into agreement. Chapter 5, The Secret of Socrates. The ancient philosopher Socrates was known for many things: his wisdom, his questions, and his ability to guide people toward truth. But one of his greatest secrets, Dale Carnegie tells us, was simple: get the other person saying yes as quickly as possible. When we argue, we often start by pointing out differences. We highlight where we disagree. And instantly, resistance builds. But Socrates understood that if you begin with agreement, even on small points, you create momentum. People who say yes once are more likely to say yes again. Their minds shift into a cooperative state rather than a defensive one. Carnegie explains that when you begin with questions or statements the other person must agree with, you're not forcing your way, you're leading them gently down a path of agreement. Before long, they're nodding, not resisting. And once they are in that frame of mind, they are far more open to your larger ideas. Think about a conversation where someone immediately told you, "You're wrong." Walls went up, didn't they? Now think of a time when someone began with, "We both want the same outcome," or, "I think you'll agree with this point." Suddenly, it felt less like a battle and more like a shared journey. This is the secret of Socrates: start with agreement. Instead of provoking a "no," which closes the door, encourage a "yes," which keeps the door wide open. So the next time you want to influence someone, don't begin with arguments or contradictions. Begin with small, obvious truths, points you both share. Get that first yes, and then another. Before long, you'll find the conversation flowing toward harmony instead of conflict. Chapter 6, The Safety Valve in Handling Complaints. Every heated conversation, every argument, every complaint has something in common: someone wants to be heard. Dale Carnegie reminds us that one of the greatest tools we have in such moments is not clever words or quick solutions, it's listening. He calls it a safety valve. Think of it this way. When pressure builds inside a boiler, it needs a release. Without it, the boiler may explode. In the same way, when a person is angry or upset, they need a safe outlet. If we interrupt, argue, or dismiss their feelings, we only build more pressure. But if we listen, patiently, quietly, and with genuine attention, we give them relief. The tension begins to ease. Carnegie shares countless examples of how allowing people to talk themselves out, without interruption, turns potential conflicts into cooperation. When people feel heard, they no longer need to fight so hard. Their defensiveness drops. Their hostility softens. Often, once they've said their piece, they're ready to listen in return. But here's the key: you must listen sincerely. Not while planning your rebuttal. Not with impatience in your tone. You listen with full presence, nodding, acknowledging, even encouraging them to continue. By doing this, you show respect. You validate their feelings, even if you don't agree with their viewpoint. This approach works in business, in friendships, in family life. A customer's complaint, a colleague's frustration, a partner's outburst, all of these situations improve the moment we become the calm listener. So the next time you face criticism or complaint, resist the urge to argue back. Open the safety valve. Let the other person talk freely. When they feel heard, the storm quiets, and only then will your voice have a chance to reach them. Chapter 7: How to Get Cooperation. Most people dislike being told what to do. Orders spark resistance. Demands create friction. But Dale Carnegie discovered a far more effective way to win cooperation: invite people to share in the idea. Instead of barking commands, ask questions. Instead of saying, "Do this, try, what do you think would work best here?" This small shift transforms the dynamic. Suddenly, the other person feels included, respected, and trusted. They're no longer just carrying out your will, they're helping to create the solution. Carnegie gives us a simple truth: people are far more committed to a plan when they have a hand in shaping it. A boss who asks for an employee's input, a parent who involves a child in decision-making, or a leader who frames instructions as choices rather than orders, all find that cooperation comes willingly, not grudgingly. Think of it as planting a seed together. When you say, "How would you approach this?" or "Do you think it might work if we tried it this way?" you're allowing the other person to nurture the idea as their own. And when it becomes their idea, they protect it, defend it, and carry it forward with pride. Carnegie reminds us, even if you already know the answer, even if you're sure of the best path, you gain more by guiding others to discover it themselves. It's not manipulation, it's respect. It's showing faith in their ability to think, decide, and contribute. So the secret to getting cooperation is simple: ask instead of telling. Replace orders with questions. Replace control with inclusion. When you invite others into the process, you don't just get compliance, you build trust, ownership, and genuine collaboration. Chapter 8: A Formula That Will Work Wonders for You. When people make mistakes, our first impulse is often to criticize, to correct, to prove them wrong. But Dale Carnegie warns us, direct criticism almost always breeds resentment. People may argue back, or worse, they may silently withdraw, holding on to bitterness long after the moment has passed. So what's the alternative? Carnegie offers a simple but powerful formula: begin with praise and honest appreciation, then gently lead into the correction. Think of it this way: before a doctor gives medicine, they first reassure the patient. Before a teacher points out an error, they highlight what was done well. In the same way, when we acknowledge someone's strengths, their efforts, their good intentions, we soften their defenses. And when defenses are lowered, guidance is easier to accept. For example, instead of saying, "You did this wrong," you might say, "I really appreciate the effort you put into this. There's just one small adjustment that could make it even better, notice the difference." One approach stings, the other encourages. One closes the heart, the other opens it. Carnegie emphasizes that this formula is not about flattery. It's about sincerity. Praise must be genuine. Appreciation must be real. Only then does the correction feel like support, not criticism. This technique works wonders in business, in families, in friendships, anywhere people must work together. By first lifting someone up, you create the trust and goodwill that makes honest feedback possible. So the next time you must correct or guide, remember this formula: start with praise, then give your suggestion. A small shift in approach, but one that can transform resistance into cooperation, and resentment into growth. Chapter 9: What Everybody Wants. At the core of human nature lies a simple truth: every person longs to feel important. Dale Carnegie tells us that this deep desire, to feel valued, recognized, and respected, is universal. And when we fulfill it for others, we win their goodwill and cooperation almost instantly. Think about it. From childhood to old age, people crave acknowledgement. A child shows their drawing, hoping for praise. An employee works late, longing for recognition. Even in disagreements, beneath the words, what people often want is validation, that their thoughts, their feelings, their presence matter. Carnegie warns us, denying this need creates resentment, but fulfilling it opens hearts. And the way we do this is through sincere appreciation. Not flattery, not empty words, but genuine recognition. When you notice someone's effort, when you acknowledge their strengths, when you say, "I appreciate what you did," you give them something priceless: the feeling of importance. He reminds us that even the harshest critics, even the most difficult people, soften when they feel respected. Recognition turns barriers into bridges. Appreciation melts hostility. It doesn't just influence people, it transforms relationships. The key is sincerity. People can sense when praise is hollow. But when it comes from the heart, when it is specific and honest, it nourishes the spirit. So remember this principle: what everybody wants is to feel important. Give it to them, not by pretending, but by truly seeing the value in others. In doing so, you not only win people to your way of thinking, you also give them a gift they'll never forget. Chapter 10: An Appeal That Everybody Likes. Logic is powerful. Facts are important. But Dale Carnegie reminds us that when it comes to influencing people, logic alone is rarely enough. Human beings are not driven only by reason, we are guided by emotions, by values, and most of all, by our sense of doing what's right. That's why Carnegie teaches us to appeal to a person's nobler motives. Instead of questioning their character or pushing with cold facts, invite them to act according to their better nature. For example, rather than accusing someone of being unfair, you might say, "I know you value fairness, and I believe you'll want to do what's right in this situation." Instead of pointing out selfishness, appeal to their generosity. "You've always been kind and thoughtful, I'm sure you'll want to help here." Carnegie understood a timeless truth: people see themselves as honorable. They want to live up to their own ideals. When you appeal to those ideals, you're not forcing them, you're inspiring them to be the best version of themselves. This works in business, in leadership, even in family life. A manager can motivate employees not only with paychecks, but by appealing to pride in their work. A parent can guide a child not through scolding, but by appealing to their honesty, their courage, their kindness. Of course, sincerity is vital. If the appeal is false or manipulative, people will see through it. But when it is genuine, when it recognizes the good in others, it has the power to move hearts as well as minds. So remember this principle: when logic fails, appeal to the nobler motives. It's an approach everybody likes, because it speaks not to the flaws in people, but to the greatness they wish to live up to. Chapter 12: When Nothing Else Works, Try This. Sometimes, no matter how reasonable we are, no matter how kind or logical our words may be, people still resist. They hold on to their viewpoint with stubborn pride. Dale Carnegie offers us a final tool for these moments, one that can disarm even the toughest opposition: challenge them. Not with anger. Not with insult. But with a gentle, respectful challenge that sparks curiosity and pride. When people are invited to test their ideas, to prove themselves, they often rise to the occasion. And in doing so, they may discover the truth for themselves, something far more powerful than being told they're wrong. Carnegie shares stories of businessmen and leaders who, instead of arguing endlessly, issued a simple challenge: why don't we put it to the test, or let's see which approach really works. This method shifts the conversation from conflict to cooperation. Instead of clashing over opinions, both sides work toward finding proof. The beauty of this principle is that it removes ego from the equation. No one feels attacked, because the test itself becomes the judge. And when people discover the answer with their own eyes, they embrace it more fully than if it had been forced upon them. This technique appeals to a natural human instinct, the spirit of competition, the desire to prove oneself right. But often, in the process of testing, people come to see new perspectives, and because it feels like their discovery, they accept it willingly. So when all else fails, when reason, kindness, and persuasion fall short, remember Carnegie's advice: try a challenge. Invite the other person to test the idea. Sometimes, the surest way to win people to your way of thinking is not to tell them the answer, but to let them uncover it for themselves. Part 4, Be a Leader, How to Change People Without Giving Offense or Arousing Resentment. Chapter 1, If you must find fault, this is the way to begin. Criticism is a delicate thing. Too sharp, and it wounds pride. Too blunt, and it creates resentment. Yet there are times when correction is necessary, when we must guide, improve, or redirect someone's actions. Dale Carnegie teaches us that the best way to begin is not with criticism at all, but with praise. Every person has strengths, qualities worth admiring, and efforts that deserve recognition. By pointing these out first, genuinely, sincerely, we soften the ground for what comes next. People feel valued, respected, and seen for the good they've done. And in that frame of mind, they are far more open to hearing suggestions for improvement. Carnegie gives us this wisdom: begin with appreciation before pointing to mistakes. Instead of saying, "You handled this poorly," you might say, "You've done excellent work on many parts of this project. There's just one area where we could make it even stronger." The difference is profound. One approach shuts down cooperation, the other invites it. This method is not about flattery. Empty words are quickly detected and dismissed. The praise must be specific, genuine, and heartfelt. Only then does it create the goodwill necessary for correction to be received without resentment. Think of it like cushioning a blow. Or better yet, think of it as lighting a path. Praise provides the light, and within that light, guidance feels less like criticism and more like encouragement. So, when you must correct or point out faults, remember Carnegie's advice: always begin with praise and honest appreciation. It is the doorway through which even the hardest truths can enter gently. Chapter 2, How to Criticize, and Not Be Hated for It. No one enjoys being criticized. It stings the ego, bruises pride, and often sparks resentment. Dale Carnegie knew this well, and so he offered a way to correct people without arousing hatred: soften the criticism by first admitting your own mistakes. When you point out a fault in someone else, begin by speaking of your own. Say, "I've made the same mistake myself," or "I know how easy it is to overlook this, because I've done it too." Suddenly, the criticism no longer feels like an attack. Instead, it feels like guidance from someone who understands. This simple shift changes everything. Instead of standing on a pedestal, pointing down at another's failure, you stand beside them, shoulder to shoulder, as a fellow human being who has stumbled before. That humility opens the heart. It makes correction not only easier to accept, but often welcomed. Carnegie shares examples of great leaders who corrected gently by wrapping advice in empathy. They did not scold, they did not shame. They admitted their own shortcomings first, then offered suggestions with kindness. The result? Respect remained intact, and cooperation followed. Think of it this way: if you want someone to improve, don't push them down. Lift them up by showing that mistakes are a shared human experience. Criticism delivered with humility becomes not an insult, but a lesson. So remember Carnegie's wisdom: if you must criticize, do it carefully. Begin with your own faults, then guide others with empathy. Criticism framed this way won't make you enemies, it will win you respect. Chapter 3, Talk about your own mistakes first. When we need to correct someone, our instinct is often to point directly at their mistake. But Dale Carnegie warns us that this approach usually backfires. It makes people defensive. It hurts pride. And once pride is hurt, cooperation fades. Instead, Carnegie offers a gentler and far more effective method. Before mentioning another person's mistake, admit your own. When you say, "I've made this mistake myself many times," or "I used to struggle with the same thing," you remove the sting of criticism. The other person doesn't feel attacked, they feel understood. Suddenly, the conversation shifts from blame to shared experience. Carnegie explains that leaders who practice this technique build trust. By humbling themselves first, they create an atmosphere where growth feels safe. The listener is far more likely to accept correction when it comes from someone who openly acknowledges their own imperfections. Think of how different this sounds. "You're doing this wrong, fix it." Versus, "I used to do this the same way, and I found it caused problems. What helped me was trying this instead." The first statement shuts a person down. The second opens a door. This principle is not about pretending or false modesty, it's about honesty. We all make mistakes. By sharing ours, we connect as equals, and guidance becomes encouragement rather than condemnation. So the next time you must correct someone, remember Carnegie's advice: start with your own mistakes. In doing so, you transform criticism into cooperation, and resistance into respect. Chapter 4, No one likes to take orders. Human nature resists being commanded. The moment we hear, "do this," or "don't do that," our pride stiffens, and a quiet voice inside whispers, "Who are you to tell me?" Dale Carnegie understood this truth and offered a better way: guide with suggestions instead of orders. When you replace commands with questions, you invite cooperation rather than demand obedience. Instead of saying, "You must finish this today," you might ask, "Do you think we could have this wrapped up by today?" Instead of, "Change this part," you could say, "What if we tried it this way, do you think it might work better?" The task is the same. The goal is unchanged. But the approach transforms the response. A command makes people feel controlled. A suggestion makes them feel respected. And respect turns resistance into willingness. Carnegie reminds us that people crave autonomy. They want to feel ownership over their work, their choices, their actions. By framing instructions as questions, you give them that sense of ownership. They become partners in the process instead of subordinates being directed. Great leaders, parents, and teachers use this principle every day. They guide, they encourage, they suggest, but they rarely command. And because of that, they win not only cooperation, but also loyalty. So remember, no one likes to take orders. If you want others to follow your lead, don't bark instructions. Ask, invite, and suggest. In doing so, you'll gain something far more valuable than obedience: you'll earn true cooperation. Chapter 5, Let the other person save face. Few things wound the human spirit more deeply than humiliation. Dale Carnegie reminds us that when someone makes a mistake, it is not only the error that hurts, it is the embarrassment of being exposed. And once pride is crushed, relationships suffer, cooperation disappears, and resentment lingers. That is why true leaders learn the art of allowing others to save face. When a person stumbles, don't magnify their mistake. Don't correct them harshly in front of others. Instead, find a way to protect their dignity while guiding them forward. Speak privately. Use gentle words. Frame the correction in a way that allows them to hold on to respect. Carnegie shares examples of great leaders and managers who, even when dealing with serious errors, chose to shield their people from humiliation. Rather than saying, "You failed," they said, "This is a difficult situation, let's see how we can solve it together." The difference is powerful. One approach breaks pride, the other preserves it. Think about yourself. Haven't you felt more willing to improve when someone corrected you with kindness, protecting your dignity, rather than exposing your flaws? That is the same gift you can give others. The principle is simple but profound: don't corner people, don't embarrass them, and don't strip them of respect. Let them save face. In doing so, you not only correct the mistake, you also preserve the relationship. Carnegie's wisdom is clear: leaders are not remembered for how sharply they point out faults, but for how gracefully they protect pride while guiding others to do better. Chapter 6: How to Spur People On to Success. There is a power inside every person waiting to be unlocked. Yet, so often, people doubt themselves. They hesitate, they shrink back, and they whisper quietly, "Maybe I can't." Dale Carnegie shows us a timeless truth: if you want to inspire greatness, give people something they crave: confidence. Carnegie tells us that the surest way to bring out the best in others is not through criticism or commands, but through encouragement. If you see even the smallest spark of potential, point it out. Shine a light on it. Tell them, "I believe in you. I know you can do this." Those simple words can awaken strength a person never knew they had. Great leaders throughout history understood this. They made people feel capable of more than they imagined. And in doing so, they unlocked extraordinary achievements. Carnegie recalls stories of workers, students, and even struggling artists who transformed their lives simply because someone trusted them enough to say, "You can." Think of a moment in your own life when someone encouraged you, perhaps a teacher, a mentor, or even a friend. Didn't that belief lift you higher? Didn't it give you the courage to push beyond your limits? That is the principle here: if you want to spur people on to success, give them honest encouragement. Recognize progress, no matter how small. Show them you see their strength. When you plant seeds of confidence in others, you don't just help them succeed, you help them believe in themselves. And that, Carnegie teaches us, is one of the greatest gifts a leader can give. Chapter 7: Give a Dog a Good Name. Reputation is powerful. Once someone is labeled as lazy, difficult, or unreliable, that shadow tends to follow them everywhere. People often live up, or down, to the expectations others set for them. Dale Carnegie reveals a simple but profound truth: if you want to bring out the best in someone, give them a good reputation to live up to. Instead of focusing on their flaws, highlight their strengths. If a worker has been careless in the past, say to them, "You've always been someone I can count on for attention to detail." If a child has struggled with honesty, tell them, "I know you're the kind of person who always tells the truth." These words act like a mirror, reflecting back not who they are, but who they could be. And human nature compels us to try and match that reflection. People strive to live up to the higher standard when they feel it has already been placed upon them. Carnegie illustrates how even those labeled as failures can be transformed simply by being given trust, dignity, and a reputation worth protecting. It is not about flattery, it's about painting a vision of the best version of a person and then gently guiding them toward it. Think about it: how differently would people behave if, instead of reminding them of their shortcomings, you consistently reminded them of their potential? So, the lesson here is clear. If you want to inspire change, give people a reputation they will be proud to uphold. In doing so, you don't just help them grow, you help them become who they've always had the ability to be. Chapter 8: Make the fault seem easy to correct. When people are told they've made a mistake, the natural reaction is often discouragement. They feel overwhelmed, defeated, or incapable of improving. Dale Carnegie reminds us that the role of a true leader is not to magnify faults, but to make improvement feel possible. If you want someone to change, don't make the task sound heavy or impossible. Instead, break it down. Show them it's within their reach. Tell them, "This is a simple adjustment," or, "With a little effort, you'll master this in no time." By framing the correction as small and manageable, you replace fear with confidence. Carnegie shares stories of employees, students, and even athletes who transformed because someone helped them see their faults not as failures, but as opportunities. With encouragement, what once felt like a mountain becomes a hill, something they can climb, step by step. This principle works everywhere, at work, in families, in friendships. When you give people the belief that their shortcomings can be corrected easily, you open the door to progress. Confidence grows, and with it, the willingness to improve. The wisdom here is simple yet profound: always make the path to improvement seem clear, light, and achievable. When you do, you empower people to rise above their mistakes, and step confidently toward success. Chapter 9: Making People Glad to Do What You Want. At the heart of true leadership lies a simple truth: people don't like being forced. Orders, demands, and commands often breed resistance. But Dale Carnegie shows us that the most effective leaders don't push people, they inspire them. They make others glad to do what's asked. How is this done? By showing respect, by appealing to a person's interests, and by giving them a sense of importance. Instead of saying, "You must do this," a wise leader says, "I know you're the right person for this task," or, "You'll do this better than anyone else could." Suddenly, what once felt like a burden becomes an opportunity. Carnegie emphasizes that when people feel recognized, trusted, and valued, they approach their responsibilities with enthusiasm. They don't just comply, they contribute with pride. The key lies in shifting the focus from your needs to theirs. How will this benefit them? How will they grow from it? Think of the leaders, teachers, or mentors in your own life who inspired you. They didn't force you. They made you believe in the value of the work and in your ability to succeed. That is the secret to making people glad to do what you want. So the lesson is clear: if you want cooperation, inspire pride instead of resentment. Replace commands with encouragement, and watch as people not only accept responsibility, but embrace it with joy.